Hi, welcome to No Nonsense Bible Basics. We're beginning now in the book of Genesis. We're going to go through every book, possibly, and we're going to see what the Bible actually tells us for our modern times. So we're going to start with the book of Genesis right now. Genesis
In the
chapter
beginning,
1.
God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it, and it was so. And God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let the dry ground appear," and it was so. God called the dry ground land, and gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to the various kind." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kind, and trees bearing fruit and seed in it according to their kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be light in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred time and days and years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light to the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters teem with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the water teems, and it moves about in it, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in numbers, and fill the waters and the sea, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kind, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." And God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. And God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give to you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit and seed in it. They will be your food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant to it for food." And it was so. And God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day.
So, as we see here, it's the beginning of the creation of the world. Now, one thing we have to see about the Bible here. So, we're looking at the Old Testament. Now, the Old Testament was, according to different scholars, written at different times, but it's pretty much honed down that it was put together around the time that there was a collapse of civilization that was written around put together around the late Bronze Age. Now, that sort of coincides with us today in 2020, because if you look at that time, there were major world powers. Of course, not extensive into the Americas, maybe not, because there was some evidence that maybe there was something like that happening. We don't know, but there was a huge network of trade and culture trade. Trade of goods, trade of services, trade of people, trade of ideas that led to a booming civilization across the Mediterranean that reached all the way to China. And according to some evidence, maybe even to the Americas, because there were some mummies that did have evidence of cocaine and tobacco, nicotine use. So who knows if that was real? Some say it might have been a little bit of contamination from the explorers in the 1800s who unearthed and did some autopsies on that. But so there's a huge global trade network, whatever global was at that time, all the civilizations that were there. There is Egypt, there is Minoa, there was the Far East, there was the Levant. So they were all together, and there was suddenly a civilization collapse. There was evidence that there was roaming bands of marauders that came and destroyed. There was also evidence there was civil unrest, and some cities were actually destroyed by their own citizens, especially the capitals, the capital areas, the government areas. So we're seeing a lot of that today too. So it's coincides pretty much. But what happened here is the civilization entirely collapsed, and so that era, the era that collapsed, became the age of heroes that you see in all the legends of the Greco-Roman myths. The legends of Troy happened at this time. And so did some of the incidents in the Bible that were written. Now, tradition is that the Bible was written by Moses. So, and the other tradition is through recent scholarly insight through the last couple hundred years is that it was probably put together by the reforming of the Babylonian exile. So there's a difference there by a couple hundred years. But I'm concentrating on some of the events that's happening here and probably when they were put together. So if Moses wrote the books of the Bible, it said God gave them to him. So there are hints, though, in the beginning of the book of Genesis, of that there's other material that's going on, that's being used here. Now, if we look, in ancient history, man is 100,000 years old. But some of the ancient knowledge that we have, the most ancient, is only, 6,000 years? There was a catastrophic incident that happened about 12,000 years ago, the Younger Dryas era, that possibly wiped out ancient civilizations. I'll point you at the end some different books about both of these topics that you can research yourself and hopefully enjoy. But so what's happening here is, what I'm telling you is, this book was put together. It's a book of literature. The book of Genesis and all of the first five books of the Bible, the Pentateuch, the Book of Laws, they are the Torah. They are supposedly written by Moses, but it looks like he took some source books from different places to give us this. Because if we look at some of the ways that the writer gives facts and the way things happen in sequence, the sequential order of a lot of the things, if you take away some of the mythology, how you enhance things by telling it through your perspective, not truth. I'm using mythology in a different type of way. So if you take away that, let's look at that. It's very interesting. It looks like whoever wrote this, maybe God directly gave it, but whoever wrote this had some actual scientific knowledge of the formation of not just the universe, but of life on Earth. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. Now the earth was formed, but it was formless. Cosmology tells us that earth was just a gas and mass that was swirling around the sun and formed. And was void, there was nothing there. So God saw light day and night, so God creates the stars. God said, "Let there be a firmament of the midst of the waters," and then water covered the earth. And we know that earth was primarily covered with water, and then through volcanic activity, mass produced, land masses. And let the waters and the heavens gather together into one place, and then let dry land appear. So sequentially, that's what happened according to our cosmology and science. So, going down, God brought forth the grasses, the herb that yield seed, and the fruit trees that yield fruit according to the kind and seed itself. Doesn't really go according to, because we know that's later in the geological era. Excuse me. Also, the earth brought forth grass, herb of its kind, trees, and so God saw that was good. So what's happening here, instead of getting nitpicky about exactly what type of fruit or what type of vegetation, it's saying the land appeared and then vegetation appeared and then animals appeared. And it is what happened. And let's take a look at how the Bible talks about how animals appeared. So let there be light, and that, of course, that's more of a myth because the ancients knew two lights along with the stars, the sun and the moon, of course. Set them in firmament day and night. So we have day and night. That is explaining day and night. So living creatures. God created sea creatures first. We know that's how evolution started. Through the sea. We all come from the sea. And the sea creatures came first. And everything according to its kind, and every winged bird according to its kind, and it was good. And every creeping thing and beast in the earth was next after that. So what we see here is first marine animals and then birds. Curious thing about that, beginning in the 80s, some archaeologists and paleontologists would say that dinosaurs were actually akin to birds. They are actually the ancestors of birds. So if you take that scientifically, that first fish and then birds, that's, again, according to the sequence of what happened. And then all the other animals, and then man finally. So we have a sort of of course, intermixed with different aspects of them looking at the world around them and using conjecture along with, it looks like something that they actually had. Maybe there was a civilization before this that knew about this, that there was a science before. Who knows? Maybe God just let that knowledge to man through Moses. Who knows? Depends upon your ideas. So I'll let that go to you. Now the interesting thing here is, a lot of people who are in the more fundamentalist area or evangelical area, and some of you may be in that vein of theology, you look at the words day here, and there's 6 days here. So God created the earth in 6 days, and the 7th day he rested. So 7 days. Some people take that as literal. Now the word for day is yom in Hebrew. Now the exact meaning of yom changes through time. Changes specifically about time. It changes by the use. It generally means a span of time. So could it mean a day? Yes, specifically, and when it says a day, it's usually mean day and night, and it's usually very specific about a day, on the day of. This probably means era. It's a non-specific time. Now, during this time, God created this. During this time, God created this. During this time, God created this. Now, how the dating system of how old the earth was actually an old Roman Catholic system. There was actually a priest who was riding on a donkey back and forth between parsonages. He counted out the exact number of years. So 6,000. So that's why some creationists will say that the earth is only 6,000 years old, while science will say that the earth itself is billions of years old. I think myself, I am I'm a creationist in a way. I'm a theological evolutionist. I believe in evolution. I believe that the existence of the universe is beyond count, and the earth is billions of years old, and mankind is 100,000 years old at least. There are many, many mysteries of ancient man, and why he just sort of suddenly appears in the geological record. So I'm not anti-creationist. I believe God created, but I believe he used, like he does today, nature around us. Sometimes we want healing as Christians. Sometimes God's healing is going to a doctor. Sometimes God does miraculous works. But you notice he doesn't do it to everybody. Why? Why isn't there a miracle for everybody who has cancer? God has his own way of doing things to make it all work out the best for all of us. And he uses, more than not, natural order and nature and the way things work normally throughout the world. And so here, I think we have an ancient world that God created, used evolution, and it's somehow recorded through some ancient source that is given here. Or God's just giving it to Moses. But look at it, it's very close to the geological record. And so what God does is he makes man the ruler. So man has authority. Man has dominion over the fish over the sea. So what does that mean? It means we can go and deplete the world? No. It means we are the overseers. We are the caretakers of the earth. We have dominion. We have authority. Now, if you've ever seen a Spider-Man movie, of course you know what the motto for Spider-Man is. With great power comes great responsibility. What more power can God give man than total dominion over the earth? So with that comes great responsibility, because we are going to be held accountable, I think, for how we treat the earth as well. We are supposed to be caretakers of the earth. Now God saw everything that he made, and it was good. So at the beginning, when God made everything, it was perfect. But we'll see in the next chapter, the next time we meet together, of how evil crept in. And we'll look at the nature of evil. But right now, I want us to just study some of the books, maybe if you wish, that I'm going to reference here at the end. And take a look and see for yourself what you think, if I'm telling you, is there truth or not. And if not, you can write back on the comments section of this YouTube page and let me know. And maybe we can have a discourse on this later. But thank you for joining, and have a wonderful day. Let me have a word of prayer with you. Father God, we thank you for everybody who's watching this, and ask that you'd give them an enlightened heart today. Help them, Lord God, if they're depressed, to be uplifted. Give them strength and give them courage. And give us all hope. Amen.